and welcome to Table Talks on Today with Paul. Today, very happy to talk about hockey in general, I guess, while I go through some collectibles that I happen to have collected over, well, in my later teen years, actually, maybe early and later teens. I grew up playing ice hockey, and of course, that meant a lot of playing on the street as well. Of course, I got some table decoration here, even a little flashback to the late 90s with an aluminum Nike hockey stick when Nike first got in on the action. Of course, just about every kid in my generation in the town I lived in. Oh, the last pair of skates I bought, well, I saw these CCM tacks on the store shelf. Last pair I ever bought, but yeah, growing up, all the cool kids had CCM tacks. All this little decoration on the side made it look super cool. And of course, you can see this nice beat up ice hockey glove over here. So you break it in and you take your fingers out a little bit, mind you here. We're not trying to break my fingers, but if you can get flexing, you're like that. And you're doing pretty good, because these bad boys are not that flexible. In fact, you can see how little you move thumb. You got a little joint right there, so you can get your thumb wrapped around the stick nicely there. Now you can see how beat up and miffed up they are. That's the game. It's a little bit rough and tumble, so you got to be prepared. Of course, the jersey I got on, late 90s Buffalo Sabres jersey. Now the earlier Buffalo Sabres, back when they're first starting out, they were more so blue and yellow and that sort of thing. Now they modernized it in the late 90s, which they did with a lot of teams, including the St. Louis Blues. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get into my little action figure collection, shall we? All right, let's get started with all this. And what I'm going to start with here is so happen to have Tony Amonte, the Chicago Blackhawks back in his day. Like I said, we're talking late 90s. I was a 80s baby, grew up in the 90s in my formative years, if you will. Starting lineup was a division of Kenner, owned by Hasbro at this point. I'm reading off the back of the package here, and you can see where action figures were at the time. Baseball, basketball, all that, they were in this fashion, more or less. I'm not going to remember all the positions people played, but I remember Tony Amonte being quite the skilled player, who also just so happened to be more so of an enforcer as well. And of course, like my brother said when he was back in town earlier this fall, saying, you got kind of that enforcer look on your face, the way you kind of have carry yourself. He said, well, I don't know about that. I said, you got the long hair, and most enforcers in the NHL, which is slowly wrapping up and coming to an end, as far as them cracking down on that sort of thing, they usually have the long hair. So there you go with Tony. And let's go next. We got Chris Osgood. And you're going to see quite a few goalies in this collection. Something about goalies I always liked. They're the last defense. I was defenseman in my position. And I always liked playing goalie when we played street hockey, but of course goalie and ice hockey is so expensive. The equipment is just too much. I don't remember much about Chris, although I think he was a pretty good backup goaltender in some respects, and I think he started to kind of shine in the late 90s there towards the end of my interest in hockey. And we got Dominik Hasek. And of course, he's wearing the same style jersey I'm wearing. Dominik was just one of my favorite goaltenders of all time. He had this very cool, I want to say, athletic kind of style. I mean, he was all over the place. He'd throw his arms anywhere, kick his legs anywhere. I mean, he was just all over. He kind of definitely put some style into it. And of course, you can kind of see he did not have a typical goalie helmet, just like Chris Osgood didn't. Of course, the typical goalie helmet, you're going to see here a little better detail in a minute, but here's a variant of Dominik Hasek. Of course, as you know, that's how it goes in the collector world, and you can see there, we got the, I believe that's the white version of the jersey, and yep, I'm correct on that. And then, who we have next? We have Ed Belfour, and Ed Belfour was definitely one of my favorite goalies of all time. He played for the Chicago Blackhawks for a number of years, and And then he was traded to the Dallas Stars, as you can see in this particular action figure. And of course, the Stars themselves, well, they was moved from Minnesota, where they were the North Stars, Mike Badano in the gang, and so they went down to Dallas. There you got that. Here we go. We have John Van Viesbroek. Oh my! Try to pronounce some of these names, and look at how yellowed out that packaging is. I actually did have these hanging up on my wall when I was a kid, still living at mom and dad's. It was a decoration for me. Take your little push pin and put it in the wall and hang it up. Here's a neat little back on that. Of course, you can see every one of these comes with a trading card, so that was always kind of a nice little to do. They usually came with a nice style trading card. And up next we have Joe Thornton. Well, this is definitely on my way out of interest for hockey in general. Still collecting the action figures at that time, but yeah, don't really know much about Joe. Wasn't a player that he was coming in as I was going out as far as interest goes. So there you go, Boston Bruins. And who we got next? We got Curtis Joseph. I always just remember Curtis Joseph being a solid goalie. I don't remember too stylistically digging him too much, but I knew he was good. And of course, he's one of those goalies that has the standard style helmet, and that was always kind of a real neat thing that the goalies would have them custom painted for their own whatever. So there's that. Now we're getting into something a little bit different. This is called the headliners. These are more so like well, they're not bobbleheads, but they kind of have the shape and style of a bobblehead. But you can kind of see a little bit better that goalie helmet, like I said. And Ed Belfour, he had the Screaming Eagles on his. I mean, all the way from the Blackhawks to the Dallas Stars, he had the Eagles on there. Just a signature helmet. That was one of the cool things about the goalies, is that you knew who they were as soon as they had their helmet on. Now, the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting to me is that when baseball adopted the new catcher helmets. Now, for me personally, so basically they ripped off the goalie helmet for baseball catchers. I mean, cool. I'm glad it works for them. But basically they're wearing a hockey goalie helmet that goes all the way back to the 80s and the 90s. So yeah, I was kind of surprised I hadn't really seen. I've been waiting to see. I don't really watch baseball. Here's Curtis Joseph. He has a cool little helmet there with him playing on the Edmonton Oilers at the time. And I've been waiting to see the catchers just go ahead and have their own little personal designs on their catcher helmets. I'm sure there's probably some that do by now, because like I said, I don't watch. Here we go, Martin Brodeur. Yeah, that's part of the fun of all this, is actually just not pronouncing the names. You know, you got a big mix between European, Canadian, well, North American and Europe, really. And that's what we're talking about. Of course, Martin Brodeur being one of, I believe, an American goaltender, and also one of the few goaltenders to actually score goals. He scored, I believe he scored 2 goals. And I don't know if I have a Tom Barrasso around here somewhere, but he also did the same. We'll get on to the next section, shall we? Okay, so as you can see on my left, I have the starting lineup, Tony Amonte there. Just so happens to be for illustrative purposes, so to speak, for comparison purposes rather. You get into the early O's. I don't care what you call it, I call it the early O's, right after 2000. And all of a sudden, a comic creator, Todd McFarlane of the Spawn comic series, decides that he wants to get into the action figure game. And I remember the very first time I saw one of his sports action figures on the store shelf, which are common now and just standard issue acceptability for what you should be getting out of something. I remember being blown away. I mean, literally blown away in the details. You can compare these two. There is no comparison at all. Obviously, this is the top pick, and you were, maybe not, if I remember right, not paying that much more. So you get rid of this in the early O's, and you start getting these over here. Todd McFarlane. Now, of course, here's Wayne Gretzky. You're going to start this off with the great one himself. And of course, he started his professional NHL career off with the Edmonton Oilers. And wouldn't you know it, being the great one, there just so happens to be so many action figures of him in this whole collection because, yeah, he's the great one. If arguably without enforcers, he might not have been as great. Of course, these days we got certain examples out there, Sidney Crosby being one of them, where the players are going 30 miles an hour down the ice and they're messing with the hugest talents out there. He's got so many concussions. And you can imagine where you might lose a little nerve on the ice. Well, the great one just so happened to have great protectors, great, what did I call them, enforcers on the ice with him. When he moved to the LA Kings, he personally requested that he have Marty McSorley go with him. And they didn't want Marty McSorley. He could care less about Marty McSorley. Marty McWho? But he knew that he had his back. And here he is on the 87 Canada team. So this would have been during his time with the Oilers as well. And of course, there's quite a few other folks in the lineup there, as you can tell. Back in he always wore that little Jaffa helmet. He always wore that little Jaffa helmet, no matter what. Even to the end of his career, he always wore that little helmet, so thin. So anyways, then he goes to the Kings. And there you go. There's Gretzky with the Kings. And of course, I think you're seeing in the background there, you get a nice little base with every one of them. I mean, if you open these up, you can go ahead and display them just nicely, very nicely. And of course, there you go on the side. There's a nice little shot of the McFarlane toy symbol there. Of course, there's a nice little face of Spawn. Of course, that's, where it all started for Todd McFarlane. And of course, here you go. You got yourself Wayne Gretzky winning the championship, winning the cup. I mean, he's super excited. He's dancing. Is it the cup or what's he won? I want to check this out real quick just to be sure. I think it. Oh yeah, that's what it was. He broke the all-time scoring record on October 15th, 1989, with 1,851 points. So there you go. There's the great one celebrating him. I actually got my brother the larger figure that year. I remember when this came out. Of course, in my household, my brother was the Gretzky fan, number 99. And of course, I was the Mario Lemieux fan, number 66. And most people seem to think that he chose 66 to stand out and maybe kind of have people think of him because people were thinking of Gretzky. He's the upside down 99, right? Maybe, just maybe. But of course, there's Gretzky towards the end of his career. He played with the New York Rangers. Of course, up in New York, they do things big. They pay lots of money for good talent, and they paid for the great one to play. And so there you go. Now, unfortunately for me, I only have the one Mario Lemieux, Pittsburgh Penguins. Yes, I was always more of a player fan than I was a team fan, but you could say it's safe to say that I was a Pittsburgh Penguins fan because of Mario Lemieux, and of course Jaromir Jagr. Jaromir Jagr, can't forget about him. He was his right-hand man during those years, and of course Mario Lemieux in the last few had actually become part owner. Last I had heard, he's still part. I haven't really done too much looking into that. Now, unfortunately for me, even though I knew at the time there was a white jersey variant of this one, I did not get it. Just for giggles, we'll go to the back. And there's another shot of my main man, Mario Lemieux. Just keep moving forward here with these. Here's another one of them, Joe Thorntons from the Boston Bruins. Yeah, what can I say? Even if I didn't know the guys, I still knew that there was good talent at the time, and I also have a great appreciation for detailed figures. And this is going to start to look ridiculous in all these figures. There's Brett Hull on the Red Wings, of course, of St. Louis Blues fame. I mean, just a great, outstanding player. Of course, his dad, Bobby Hull, played on the Blackhawks for years back when. I think even when Gordie Howe was playing. Eric Lindros, New York Rangers there, great enforcer. Also a talent house, too. He had some talent. Not all enforcers are just there for muscle and just to protect the main star. Sometimes they got some talent as well. Speaking of talent, Boom! There goes one on the floor. We got Piers Forsberg there, the Colorado Avalanche, and of course around the mid to late 90s, Colorado Avalanche were forced to be reckoned with. They were winning Stanley Cups. Joe Sakic, Pierre Forsberg. You got, of course, Patrick Waugh, which I unfortunately do not have a McFarlane figure for. Wish I had Patrick Waugh. And of course, Jaromir Jagr. Oh yeah, not on the Pittsburgh Penguins in this one, but Jaromir Jagr, just a great all-around player. Of course, he had really long hair, but he was a fantastic super player, no doubt about it. We're gonna go on over here to oh my goodness, give me a minute here. Chris Pronger of the St. Louis Blues. Yes, you can't go wrong with Chris. Chris is good people too. So you got Chris there. You know, he was known as a bit of an enforcer himself. He was also a skilled player, and you know, he's just a good all-around player, no doubt about it. So there's out to Chris. Here we go, Jerome Iginla of the Calgary Flames. Jerome, probably one of the first mixed players to really be seen out in the scene. I mean, there's an increasing amount of black players in the hockey scene these days. You know, for whatever reason, I don't know, mostly white players would be out there. I don't know why that is exactly, but it seems to be the case. But increasingly, starting here with Jerome, you end up getting closer to having more diversity in hockey. Of course, great player. Grant Fuhrer. Here we're looking at some like 80s retrospective there. That classic style helmet, that was kind of like mid 80s. You can kind of see where we go from a little further than the Jason mask. You know, that's the typical Halloween mask, comes from the classic goalie mask of the day. That's what that was. And of course, as you can imagine, that has no protection whatsoever. But starting to see things shape out there. This is more of a classic Legend series, they're calling it. And he still played into the 90s. Good goaltender. So here we are into the goaltenders, as you can tell. And there's my main man, Dominic Hasek again. Of course, at this point in time, and we're talking early O's here, we're not talking late 90s anymore. You know, of course, Detroit bought him too. They went ahead and decided to want to build a powerhouse. They had Brett Hull and Dominic Hasek, and you can see that on the back. Of course, Dominic still sticking with his standard style goalie helmet, his style, not the standard style, but his style. Of course, I used to rock a helmet similar to that for defense, to tell the truth. And here we got Martin Brodeur. There you go. They're New Jersey Devils. And yeah, like I said, one of the few goaltenders to ever really score a goal. Of course, I think you notice in here, pretty neat. You get the whole net and everything with these goaltenders. I think that's part of the reason I find them pretty neat, because as far as that action figure collector goes, yeah, you're getting a whole lot of bang for your buck out of them bad boys. All right, on the next one. Oh yeah, my main man, Ed Belfour. Playing with the Dallas Stars, Mike Modano in the gang at this point in time. I think he even played for the Sharks for a little bit, San Jose. But yeah, solid goaltender all around. He's the one I got my number from when I was playing that. He was my guy. I think I just really like the Eagles on his helmet. Really cool. So let's go on to the next one here. Yeah, we're just crashing things over here. Oh my, now I don't even really know this guy. This was another one of those where I'm on my way out interest-wise, but some guys are coming in. And I'm going to flip this around real quick. I have to try to pronounce this. We're going to try Evgeny Nabokov. Yeah, good luck pronouncing names out there. You know, one of my favorites of all time to pronounce was Darius Kasparaitis. Yes, Darius Kasparaitis. And it was mostly because it sounded like some sort of exotic disease. So that was always fun. I always liked that. I'm getting wobbly here on my little towers I got. Okay, we got Jose Theodore, I don't know. Montreal Canadiens. Hey, I got a Montreal Canadian jersey up here on the table. There you go. That's pretty neat. And let's see what else we got here. We got one more for you out there. Don't know this guy either, but there we are with the Edmonton Oilers again. Tommy Sallow. Yeah, I seem to think that he did really well. None of these guys are going to get their own figure and all that from a major company like this unless they're top tier, no doubt about it. So Tommy Sallow was up and comer at the time when these came out as well. Well, it does all Todd McFarlane action figures, but I think you can see quite obviously where the where things just kind of upscaled crazy. I mean, and still a standard today. Todd McFarlane's just knocking it out. Of course, he's doing Walking Dead action figures these days and expanding all the time. Yeah, detail to the extreme, just beautiful. So let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and give an outro here for you and show one last figure I got. Let's move on, shall we? Well, as promised, I have one last action figure to show, and it was too tall to show in that camera angle in particular. And just so happens to be, I'm sad to say, the only Patrick Waugh I have, I do believe. But yeah, pretty interesting though. It's called Pro Zone, NHL Pro Zone by Playmates. They actually have, really it's a doll. It's not really an action figure, more so a doll, I'm going to call it. Yeah. Has more more in common with Barbie and the like, or the big G.I. Joes, I suppose. No, I suppose you call it action figure still. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be. There you go on the back. They had some others. Just never had a Patrick Waugh. Unfortunately, did not get the cool mask like shown on here. He had an actual Avalanche for being goaltender on the Avalanche on the side of his helmet. Like I said, those custom graphics on the goalie helmets, that's part of the appeal. I always thought they were super cool. Now, of course, on the back here, you see that they actually did show that there were going to be some of the graphics. Well, no, they didn't include that. And that happens a lot with collectibles. And so there you go. There's Patrick Waugh, of course, also famed for having played with the Montreal Canadiens. So there you go with that. And that's the last one on the list. So anyways, I want to thank you for going down this little journey with me, and for anyone who stuck around this long through the video. Of course, thank you for sharing, liking, and subscribing as always. And of course, I hope to catch you next time. Peace.